Welcome to Season 3 of The Aggregate, narrative coatings from around the globe. It's a diverse assembly of designers, architects, artists, and builders from our vast world whose experiences, stories, and lessons combine to make the grandiose plaster genre feel just a little smaller. Our show isn't just about triumphs and tragedies. Moreover, it's about insight, takeaways, and ultimately growth. These factual fables blend to storied histories that audibly enhance the trade, slowly passing down time-honored traditions amongst a fast and fictional digital era. This isn't artificial intelligence. Instead, we're celebrating actual intelligence. So take a third breath as New Age Artisans coats the planet and changes the standards of what it means to educate, empower, and create. I'm your host, Jeremy Mistretta, along with my friend on the dials, Vincent Ryan, and welcome to our show. Welcome back, plaster people. Hope everyone's doing well today. Season 3. 24, Vin. Hope everyone out there in listener land is doing well. Appreciate everyone tuning in with us last week as we wrangled the proverbial cattle calls. How do you like that, Vin? With Ben Canales and Carl Zock. Super fun Venn diagram and a prime example of what happens when folks just surrender to the flow. It was hilarious, and we had to cut the conversation short. Not entirely true. We didn't cut it short at all. All we did was just turn the recording device off. And the banter carried on for 2 more days as we coated our abstract pieces and then segued into our veneer blends. A lot of our classes have the occasional professional and a lot of newbies. So the content can be drawn out a bit as newcomers navigate the nuances of application, prep, and travel talks. This group was different, though. It's full of seasoned plasterers, so there was little time spent on the application and a lot of time spent conversing about our respective markets and the strategies that will continue to propel our passion into the future. We've got another professional workshop happening in August, and I'm already looking forward to the banter between Renan Costa, Petros Dandalos, and Angel Lopez. Installation front, I want to hear from you, Vincent. You know we're busy. Everyone knows we're busy. Busy as always. We're pushing forward on a nice remodel for Authentic Incorporated in Manhattan, Montana, with our classic blend. We've got 1 more day of cleaning and some minor detailing left with Fish Camp Customs in Paradise Valley before mobilizing back to a Cadillac Scratch Brown finish coat for dovetail construction on a beautiful house in the Yellowstone River. And we're in the throes of a primary bathroom being coated in Cadillac in Big Sky. We've been hot on the builder's tails, awaiting our chance to get into the space as the stone installers took their generous time. Once they were complete and they vacated the room, we entered and we noticed, this is what I was telling you, Ben, several horizontal Sharpie lines in small niches. And upon questioning, we were told that they were glass shelves that were to be installed with some custom brackets. Brackets that were actually still in Idaho, 4 hours away. Now, we've been under some intense scrutiny from certain project managers of this particular building company because we're not jumping to their beck and call as smaller details become ready for plaster. When I was told about the bracket fumble, I wanted nothing more than to blow up and lecture. But I didn't. I didn't because that's what they would do. I think it's just too easy to do it. It's low-hanging fruit in the world of contracting. And as I try my hardest to be the change I want to see in the manufacturing world, I remind myself that it's also my duty to do the same in the world of installations. I just logged a nice little mental note and quickly moved the chess piece on the board that is my brain and once again adjusted to a situation that is completely outside my control. It's frustrating. It's nothing new, and it won't change. I know it. As we sat in the class last week, we all concluded that we have the same triumphs and tragedies in the contracting world. Nothing different at all. Hypothetical 9 to 5 mystery at its finest. It's easy to think that our hurdles are isolated to just us. They aren't, I promise. The high-end hustle is just a microcosm, an intimate view into a cascade of variables that continue to evolve and perpetuate. And as my friends, the fish from Vermont, say in their song Gila Papyrus, they expand exponentially like some recursive virus. My wife, she's a medical practitioner, and each day she returns home from work and details disconnects that occur amongst her working conditions too. Even though there are stringent policies and procedures at play, there are still opportunities about for a black and white scenario to become very gray. In gray, you say, that, Vincent, is where I tend to live all day. What if it were different? What if a theory and practice combined to create a reality that is indeed fact? What if this fact could be presented by today's guest? Maybe Nikiforos. You're going to have to help me with the last name again. From Greece.
Meimaroglou.
Nikiforos Meimaroglou. That's a beautiful name.
Difficult name and difficult surname. Yeah, it's difficult.
It's difficult, but it's not. It's Meimaroglou.
It's Turkish because my grandfather was an immigrant from Minor Asia, and it actually means the son of the architect. Oglu is the son in Turkish. Meimar is the architect, so it's like the son of the architect. It's my surname.
Yeah, and the G is like Meimaroglou, or is it silent?
Glou. Meimaroglou. But I guess this would be very difficult for you.
Meimaroglou. Yeah.
Meimaroglou. Okay. You can try for many times until you get it right. It's not that easy.
Nikiforos Meimaroglou. I like it.
Okay.
We'll stick with it. Yeah.
Nikiforos or Niki, it's much easier. You know, people from other countries usually call me Niki or Nikiforos, which is easier.
Yeah, Niki. I like Niki. That's easy. We can do that. It is 10:15 in the morning here, 14th of May, 2026. It's kind of springtimey, stormy weather, things happening. Niki, I'm looking in the back with you right now. Is that sun behind you? What?
Yeah, it is. It's afternoon here.
What time is it there?
It's 7:18.
Okay, so a little, yeah, early.
We still have sun for half an hour or something like that. But we are in Athens, you know. Usually it's sunny. This is and especially in May and in summer, it can be very sunny and very hot sometimes. But now it's a better period, let's say, spring.
Okay.
For all of us, I believe in most countries, it's the better thing.
Yeah, I guess I thought it was maybe a little later there. I expected it to be dark, but nice to know we're not keeping you up too late. Sometimes we have folks from India and oh God, or Australia or Japan.
It will be dark until we end up the conversation. I believe it will be night here.
All right, and then we'll get you to bed. So we're winding down on season 3. Been a rewarding run of shows. But I'm not going to lie, Vin and I, we need to take a break, and we can focus on the wild summer of work and travel, as well as building content and additions for the Plaster Portal. And we're going to foster some new connections. This September, I've got some hopeful plans to return to England and attend the Building Limes Forum. It's a great conference. I learn a lot. Last year's travels for me, they were no different. And as I went to Padova, Italy, and attended the Historic Mortar Conference and had the great pleasure of hanging out with past season guest Dr. Marie Jackson and Serbia's Emilia Nikolic. And as I navigated the rustic streets of Padova with Marie, she talked to me about some of her wildly fascinating research projects all over the world. But more importantly, she talked to me about some of them in Greece. And then we began to talk about Niki and Baluki. She was telling me all about it. And she said, "You're in luck. He's here. We're going to go meet with him right now." So we sat down at the cafe, and I got to sit amongst a lot of people who were considerably smarter than me at that table. And I had a good time. And there was a lot of back and forth about, projects people were working on. And I got to kind of hang out a little bit with Niki. So I know a little bit, but not a lot. You're going to tell your story here, buddy.
Yeah.
Where are you from in Greece originally?
I'm from Athens. Half of Greece is from Athens, unfortunately. It is also something that we are trying to change with Buluki, that there are not many chances to work and live outside the big city, where a small country, let's say of 10 million, half of them are living in the one city in capital now. I live here. I always lived here or in another neighborhood or in another. I was born here. Uh, but this is something that it's very important for us, to see what can we do outside the big city. And with my organization, we're trying and work outside, mostly in islands and in the Epirus, which is a mountainous area of Greece, where we have also started the base. And some of us have also moved there and live there permanently, despite it's rather difficult. Yeah, but I'm always here. I was always not just in the city center. I can't move. I consider it a small village, the city center, and I move around on foot. Always being here.
So I've never been to Athens. It's on the list to go to. What's it like there? Like, you go to some of these places like, Padova, Italy, right? And there's like the old historic center, still place of business, but then there's like the booming metropolis outside of it with the modern buildings. What is Athens like?
Unfortunately, we don't have this tradition in preserving things as in Italy. In Italy, wherever you go, even in small villages, you can see beautiful town centers, even if they are not, UNESCO listed or something like that. But people have the tendency, and they try, even in very small towns, to preserve their city and the authenticity. Here, unfortunately, we had some very bad decades in the 60s and the 70s, where most of the wealth, the construction wealth, and the beautiful buildings that they were out of masonry, beautiful decorations and plasters, were destroyed. So there is a city center. It's mostly touristic in Plaka, where most tourists go, but otherwise it's like a lot of concrete. If you come, you will see it. Not a lot of parks, not very friendly for pedestrians. The city, it's not. A lot of cars, but there are also some, beautiful spots with archaeological interest. Acropolis. There are also many, many other places. But in general, it's a, let's say, concrete jungle. This is how I would say I should describe that.
Yeah. Do you like Bob Marley, the musician?
Yeah, a lot. And I also have allergies, so when I'm here, I don't have this problem because there are not a lot of trees and a lot of flowers and things like that. So,
yeah. Bob Marley says, "No sun will shine in my day to day." And then he's like, "Concrete jungle."
yeah, I borrowed the term from there. I believe everybody did. But okay, I always lived here. I really like it.
How old are you? I'm 46. How old are you?
I'm born in '84, so I'm a bit younger, but not a lot. I'm 40. In November, I will be 42, let's say.
42. Got it. Yeah. So we're contemporaries for sure.
Yeah, but I'm a bit younger. We should say it.
Yeah. What sort of pastimes go on there in Athens, Greece, when you're a young kid born in the 80s? What sort of things do you do?
Nothing in particular, that something different. I wasn't living for some years in the center. I was living outside in a neighborhood, let's say 10 kilometers from the center. And I did, as every other kid, bicycle, playing a bit of football, but I was very bad at it. I was a rather good, student at the school. Had good grades. This is why I entered the technical university. Uh, Hanging out with my friends. Then I don't know, started drinking beers a bit later and things like that. But nothing that has to do, not even my family has something to do with heritage or traditional materials or sustainability or something like that. I didn't live in a village. Many people in Greece have a village outside, and it's something that connects them with other kind of building, of pastimes and something that can help them, find their way to move forward nowadays. I didn't have something like that because my grandfather were immigrants from Minor Asia, so they came straight to Athens. when they came as refugees after the minor Russia destruction from Izmir. So I didn't have this village house with masonry and the beautiful square as many people have and go in the summers. I always lived in the center. I don't have these images from the childhood, of another kind of building and another kind of living.
Yeah. Where did you learn English?
I learned English in school, and then we all of us, most people in Greece know English because we do some private lessons and give exams there to have some kind of certificate of proficiency in English when we are young. So, in contrast with other countries, that they are very proud of their language. We are also, a lot of us are proud of the language, of the wealth that there is, but most people speak English. No? It's not like, in Italy, Northern Italy, especially that I spend a lot of time, a lot of people don't, let's say, or in other countries, they don't speak. Here, it's something very common. If you come, you will see, it's like, you won't have a problem to walk around and find everything out.
Yeah. I think when I was in Italy, at least in, the city centers, I think I maybe bumped into one person that did not speak English.
He was very lucky, eh?
Yeah, it seemed to be that everyone spoke English, and I just, feel so remiss in my duties as a human that I'm only, mildly conversational in Spanish, not in another language.
You speak some Spanish?
Solamente un poquito, amigo.
Okay. You also have an accent, eh? Okay.
Yeah. They teach you that, in my escuela secundaria. They'll teach you that
in South, in the holidays, in the South, I guess this is something that you should learn. Huh? But there are a lot of Spanish people, or with origin from South America and things like that.
Yeah, it's more, more like Mexico, and there's a kind of a larger Hispanic movement that's happening. There's a lot of work here that's going on. So there's, when I first moved,
but now they're having bad days. Do they learn this? Do you learn Spanish in the schools? It was very interesting. Eh?
Yeah.
I thought, that there are some kind of, okay, of course, a lot of people speak, but I didn't know that it's official language, that you can learn it in school. We never had, let's say, an immigrant language, despite we have a lot of immigrants here in Greece. We never had another language, immigrant one, to be learned in the schools.
Yeah, there's a. It's starting to become, you'll go to places and there's signs in English and then signs in Spanish. So, it's becoming very quickly the second language of our country.
Let's hope, because I don't believe they have a good time this period.
Yeah. College, where did you go to, like a undergrad university?
I studied civil engineering in Athens. I never particularly liked it, because there's only one prism, one way, civil engineers in Greece see things. It's all about, you will know, and in your line of work, pretty much in the same with us, about, getting contracts, getting money, become rich, build with concrete and all the modern materials. The more modern, the better, will be with iron, with steel, now, whatever, is in fashion. And whenever, actually, I was pretty impressed in Greece, at least the whole villages and a lot of and town centers and around are made with stone. Okay, the stone masonry, it's very common to find, as in Italy that you have been. There are a lot of stone masonry buildings. And we only had one course on stone masonry, and you weren't, you could, if you want, not take it. Only 20 of us, I believe, we took out of 180 or something like that. People took this course, So there is, let's say, an ignorance on these traditional techniques and traditional building materials. I believe this has started changing, but at a very slow pace. If I compare it with other universities now, they have chairs on sustainable construction, on, traditional techniques. There are also master courses and a lot of hands-on works with the students involved. I think the university I was, let's say, the biggest in Greece, is the more famous. but it's also the more conservative in one sense in the direction they have, this that they are still stick to, let's say, one kind of program that excludes a lot of things. So when I was there, I didn't like it at all. I didn't want to finish it. I had also dropped it for some years, but then I continued to study, especially when I found that there are other things that you can do as a civil engineer than just pouring concrete all over the place, and destroying whatever it's around. And I found a master on protection of monuments. It's an issue in Greece, we have a lot of monuments because of the classical antiquity, Byzantine Empire, blah, blah. It's a huge, there are a lot of things to do. And I find the master course that was emphasized on materials. It was protection of monuments, emphasizing on the materials for conservation. So I followed it, and I could say it was the first time I actually studied, I went to the classes, I went to the lectures, I met some professors, because before as a civil engineer, I only did the basic, just to finish and get the paper, let's say, get the degree.
Jumped through the hoops.
Yeah, I was enthusiastic, and this is how it all started, and then my interest, in traditional and sustainable building materials, through this master and introduction of lime and then of earth, that it was my thesis on the master was about, stone masonry with earth mortars. So I started getting into this direction.
What were some of the projects that you worked on, like your thesis program? Like you said, earth masonry and mortars. Like what sort of projects did you work on there at the university?
This was my first, let's say. It was my master's thesis, but I did it a bit more elevated in one sense, because then we published also this in a relatively good journal. It wasn't just a master's thesis. I really got inside and started looking and learning. It was about the mechanical properties as a civil engineer. We constructed the masonry specimens of three-leaf masonry, which is a very common typology you can find in Greece, especially in thick walls. This three-leaf masonry, it's very common, I believe, also in many other countries, as I have seen. So we constructed these specimens in the laboratory with limestone and earth mortar. We used another mortar for the infill, and then we tested the compressive strength and the modulus of elasticity. And we had some quite interesting results that were published. And then, instead, as a civil engineer, getting in the higher, let's say, level of checking whole houses or checking, because the thesis was done in the earthquake engineering laboratory, that they have all this infrastructure. And my professor there, and now at my PhD, still is a professor of earthquake engineering. But me, instead of getting at the higher scale from the masonry specimens to the wall with the windows and things like that, in order to assess, what's the behavior in earthquakes, I went to the smaller scale, to the material scale, I dropped back. And so from then until now, my research is on the material scale, not on the masonry scale. We also, only in one instance, we did the research on earth block masonry, that it was again at the scale of the masonry specimen. But usually my research is on materials and the interface of materials, on plasters. I have worked a lot with plasters from Greece, with earth mortars, with lime mortars, with stones, with light clay techniques. We have done a lot of projects. Now we are also running a project in the other laboratory, the building materials laboratory, about the light clay technique, with hemp, with straw, and with sheep wool. We have also tried incorporated sheep wool that I didn't know. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, what's it called?
Sheep wool. Sheep wool. The sheep wool that we used to make blankets, or sheep wool.
Sheep wool.
The hair of the sheep. Sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep wool. But it's also a very nice building material. I didn't know its properties. I have never used. I have never. I had also. I had only once see it in earth blocks, in of traditional earth blocks, not modern. I have seen them inside, and I didn't know. I knew that they use it, but I didn't know that it has that good properties. It's inflammable, almost inflammable. It's much better than the straw. Uh, and it's also another thing that it's a bit depressing, in Greece, and I believe in other countries, is that, as I learned, it's a byproduct in Greece. Unfortunately, more of the 90% of it, it's just thrown away. It's not used for anything. They just cut it from the ships and don't use it for anything. So it's a bit, annoying. I couldn't believe it when I first started getting into why is this? Because people don't like it for sweaters, they don't like it for blankets, because the hair from these ships, the Greek ships, it's not that thin, and people want merino to wear, and they don't like the traditional ones that people do. So we try to incorporate in building materials to have some very, very nice result, especially when it comes to thermal conductivity. This is a project now we run for the past year, but we have also worked with a lot of projects with Buluki, which is the organization I'm in, a lot of building materials projects. With Buluki, I also met Marie Jackson that you met before, you mentioned before. It was our first collaboration in Thracia and Santorini. It was the biggest project of Buluki. And what was really impressive is that, usually when you call academics to come, especially if you are not well known, you are just an organization from Greece, a lot of them don't respond or just come for one day or something like that. And Marie Jackson, okay, everybody knows who she is. And she came and stayed for us for 2 weeks. She came for almost the whole project, not just for the lecture. The lecture was something, okay, I will also give a lecture. No problem. But she was there all day from morning until the afternoon in all our activities, of the workshop, of the talks, of the discussions, of everything we did. And it was, it's one thing to have a lecture, you can learn some things, but it's another thing to have an interaction for that period. And it was very helpful for us, very inspiring to have him for 2 weeks with us. So this was one of the biggest projects of Buluki in Thracia with volcanic earth. I believe many listeners will know, your listeners, not general, because people generally don't know a lot about these materials, probably know about Therian earth. It's one of, let's say, the first pozzolans that people used. It's from the islands of Santorini, Thracia. Both are covered, almost totally covered from this material. This is why also, it was very interesting stuff for Marie Jackson, because she's interested in pozzolanic material from many places, especially the Roman architecture and the Roman concrete. The Greek analog that was used in past times and was used until recently, until the 70s, I believe, at least 50 years ago. It was excavated and used all over the world, in many important infrastructure works, as the Suez Canal, the Trieste port, in the Algiers port. All these, infrastructure stuff were made with Therian earth. So this was our first project. I don't know if you can say a few things about this, because we had a lot of things going on in this project, and also paved the way on how we can work with materials in our center, with how we can incorporate a different, let's say, perspective of how we use materials, we approach tradition, and how we can use tradition, always having an eye on contemporary architecture. I believe this project for us, for Buluki, was a turning point in one sense, because of the collaborations, of the scale of the project, and it showed us that there is something that it is feasible. We can move forward. There are things we can do, that can become visible to a broader audience.
Yeah. Let's take a break. And then when we get back, I really want to talk about Buluki, what it is exactly. And I want to talk about all of these projects that you guys are doing. I was looking at the website last night and then this morning, and then watching some videos that were mostly in Greek. So thanks for the English subtitles. I would have been toast without those things. But I want to talk about those projects, and especially the projects that you've been working on.
Okay, perfect.
Hey team, Vincent here. Many have mentioned that plaster is having a moment. At New Age Artisans, we're happy about that, and add that plaster is the moment. As our world continues to spin faster and faster every day, this magical medium offers innate and constant beauty and commands us to engage our senses, giving us greatest gift of all, presence. As we admire carved pieces, ornate cornices, rendered facades, and veneer coatings, the impossibility to encapsulate the word plaster into a single and cohesive definition is evident. Each country, region, and township can have their own meanings, uses, and purposes for plaster. And as the public stares at shiny internet images, the demand for knowledge has become more prevalent with architects, designers, builders, and homeowners being tasked with repairing, restoring, or recreating elements of this lost art form. Historical information is sparse, as is the gateway to entrance into the trade. Sadly, these coveted secrets and tightly held techniques run the risk of extinction if not properly cataloged, and newcomers deserve ease of access into the field as the global labor force continues to dwindle. What if there was a place that preserved these techniques and fast-track gateway information that encouraged craft folk to stay engaged and thriving in the field? Well, that space is here, and it's called the Plaster Portal. With a small annual fee of just $75, Baseline members to the Plaster Portal get access to tips and tricks they can't find anywhere else online, as well as discounted pricing on New Age Artisan plaster blends in our growing global market. Are you wanting to further your plaster expertise? We're here for it. With a simple Baseline account, subscribers can upgrade to our Artist Series classes, taught by niche industry professionals around the world. Learn cornice in situ and sculpture from the United Kingdom, Tattalact from Brazil, floral casting in the States, and drywall from an industry icon. But that's not it. We have more in the hopper, and we're constantly creating new content. Sign up is fast, easy, and affordable. Head to newageartisans.com and click the Plaster Portal link to get started. We're gaining new members every day, and we can't wait to have you as part of our community. Before we get back to the show, here's a past guest with a quick hello.
What's up, everybody? This is Colby from Trowel Inc., and you're listening to The Aggregate.
Alrighty, we're back here. Thanks for listening to Vincent's beautiful voice. Colby Blavelt, Trowel Inc. in Boston. Nice to hear your beautiful voice, buddy. Hope you're doing great. It's been fun connecting and fun talking about some of these projects, fun talking to Dean as well, and keep up that excellent precision work you're doing, sir. Before the break, we were talking to Nikki about his upbringing in Athens, Greece, and his entrance into the world of civil engineering, and then stepping out and falling in love with earth and architecture and lime mortars. And we started talking about a project he was working on with an outfit called Baluki. And Baluki, I don't really know anything about it other than the fact that I'm wildly captivated by the website, and it seems like one of the coolest organizations I've ever seen. I know that Baluki in Greek means gaggle, right?
Ah, you have done the research, eh? Yeah,
I did my research, man. You like Vince smiling. See, I did my homework. Yeah, it also says that right on the homepage of the website, by the way. but tell us a little bit about Baluki. Tell us how it was created, who created it, and what the overall premise is of Baluki.
Baluki, at first, Baluki as a word, means a gaggle, as you said, a group, and it has to do with groups of people, in past decades of stonemasons but also of actors, that moved from one place to another for work, especially in Epirus, where we work, and we now establish our base there in an old abandoned school in Frasta area, in Frasta village. It was the birthplace, let's say, of stonemasons in Greece. It was there were a lot of them, and many villages had a lot of bulukis, let's say, which means that all the people from various ages, children, of course, only men worked back there, but also they took their children and they went around all around the Balkans and in many places in order to work as and build houses and other structures. So this is how we got this name. What also we liked a lot, it's a word that you can find in many Balkan, countries. You can also find it in the Turkish languages, I think, and in many other countries all around, because boundaries weren't that strict at that time. People moved one country, let's say, to another without these restrictions, all these things that we have nowadays, in order to work and make a living. So this is how we took this name. We started back in 2018 by 4 people back then. After a few years, more of us joined the effort. And from then we keep, working and, let's say, growing also, and maturing, I hope, but I'm not very sure. But this is the concept. But we can now undertake bigger projects, more projects. We can also emphasize on some axes we consider important, and we're not an organization, as we started, just for friends meet and start something. We are trying to work as much with professionalism as we can, in order to avoid this, misconception that there is a lot of time about traditional techniques and reference structures, that it's a bit, let's say, hippie-like, and scientific and professional to the extent that we can. And we pay a lot of attention in this respect, and we have many different now, and geographically, but also in the way we work, in the things we do. We have also expanded a lot, from let's say activities artistic to materials research, to now have started getting into the academia. Some of us worked in the ETH the previous semester. Some other colleagues from Buluki now work in the ETH this semester. We also have established collaboration with the academic environment in Greece. And we have also expanded, let's say, our work also outside Greece to a smaller extent, but this is our scope, to try to bring, let's say, what we can, our knowledge to the bigger audiences that we can. A starting point, let's say, for Buluki was the fact that you can't find stonemasons in Greece. I believe this is also something very important for us. That when we started, a lot of people love stonemasonry and traditional techniques, but actually we couldn't find craftsmen, because in contrast with other countries, I don't know, maybe you know about France or Germany or Austria, that they have this tradition keep going, with Compagnon de Devoir in France, that's a huge organization, or other organizations in Germany that we know and collaborate sometimes, that they have this knowledge passing from generation to generation. In Greece, this was interrupted a bit abrupt, let's say, during the 60s and the 50s, when concrete, conquered everything, and the craftsmen also. And a lot of techniques were lost, techniques that came from generation to generation for decades and for hundreds of years and were perfected through trial and error. Just in a few years were lost. There wasn't this official, let's say, effort from the state or from other, actors to preserve them, as in other countries, which I find a bit problematic. And this was the starting point, let's say, that we couldn't find craftsmen. So our idea was to find these craftsmen, work with them, learn from them, and let's say use them not in a bad sense, to train other craftspeople, younger craftspeople that want to get into this kind of work. And this is also one of the main things that we do and we're trying to do, the training stuff, not only the actual architectural work, but also the training.
These projects that you're working on, I mean, you were messaging me yesterday about some of them that you've worked on, and I did some research on them, and I thought that they were really awesome. How are these projects found? How do you find them, and what would create an actual project?
There's not a single answer to that. I believe it's the vision of some of our members that when they see a land, we have, some things in our head, and we're trying to see how we can implement them in this context that we have here. But it depends. Now we have a lot of projects. Some are collaborations with other organizations, some of our own. So there is, let's say, two directions. One is that we see something and we try to build a project and try to find the funding and all this stuff. And the other is that we are invited in something that it might be already funded or it's already run, but we try to put our input in there, our approach on how we work with the materials and with things. But there's not a single answer, we travel around, a lot of us travel a lot, all around Greece, meet people, meet the needs of people and see if something can be done, if let's say, the social and the economic and political environment allows to do something there. But now our focus points are mostly two areas, but we have also started in other areas in Greece. It's Epirus, that after doing a lot of projects there, it's a mountainous region, as I said before, that now we have established a permanent base. This was always a dream of our organization, to have a permanent base and not to do workshops here and there, but have something along with a permanent base established and a permanent, let's say, training program. And the other one is the Cyclades, that we have also worked a lot in many islands. There is a huge tradition. And there, one of the things that we also want to show is that there is another way, because in the Cyclades are, let's say, the more touristic places of Greece. Maybe you have heard of Mykonos or of Santorini, that are rather small islands, and the numbers of people passing by each year is enormous. Islands of 10,000 inhabitants have 1 million or 2 million tourists, visiting. Everything is about tourism. In a lot of places, not in all of them, not in all the islands, and we are trying to show that there is a huge tradition and there is another way of building and of, treating the land, also treating the resources that you have, that they are not limitless, that you can't go on this.
It seems as if there's the group of Baluki, the folks that work there, but then there's also a volunteer component as well, right?
It depends. It depends on the kind of project. Usually, we work with volunteers, but we organize workshops where people come in order to learn. As in Thirasia, where we have this workshop, where Marie Jackson also came. Usually, we always have an educational compound in our work. We are not an architectural office. We are not just take a contract and we do the work. We do this, but only to a small degree, let's say. Usually when we do something, we try to have an educational component. So that means that people will come and learn and stay for 1 or 2 weeks or how much is needed in order to get in the project and work with their hands, not just, in a theoretical frame. Along with them, there are volunteers. All these guys also are volunteers. They are paying to be there, the people that come for these 2 weeks. And usually the way we work, and we try to work, it's not always easy, is that we have the craftsmen that work at the project in order to finish it. They're responsible, in charge, let's say, of the project. Near these craftsmen, these craftsmen, of course, are paid by us. Near these craftsmen are other people, apprentices, that are also, younger craftspeople that are also paid in order to be there. And all around, there is another group, the third group, let's say, of the participants in the workshops that are architects, engineers, people that want to learn things about traditional techniques or what we do in this project, and they come for 1 or 2 weeks, and these people usually they pay. So these are, let's say, the people that participate in the project, ideally. Yes, but we're trying to work with volunteers. We have the need of people, and working hands always, because all these works are very labor intensive, working with stone, working with earth and lime. And we want to have as many as possible because people still, there is a gap in the knowledge. People don't know about them, and we want to inform, educate, disseminate this knowledge as much as we can.
I imagine that there's likely a large amount of time that's taken to develop these projects with research. Once you find a target place that you want to do the work on in the restoration, and then the research that's involved. How is Baluki backed financially? Where does the money come from to fund a great operation like this?
This is always a question and always a problem. Baluki is a non-profit organization, but the members and those people that work, we are trying to be paid for our work, not work on a volunteer basis, but try to get paid. Not the salaries that are in the market. Our salaries are unfortunately lower. But we are trying to get paid and be a professional organization. Otherwise, we have seen that this doesn't work. If you do something else and you do this as a side project, it could never, get on track. So there is the necessity of people working full time for Baluki. Not only engineers, but also have an office. We have people working in the office. There is a lot of work that need to be done. So there is not. The economic is for sure the biggest problem of Baluki. We work in the Greek environment. We're not, in France or another country that it's much easier to get some funding from the state. Or, there are big donors in USA. I was in the university and I met an organization in Indiana that, preserves the heritage and the houses of Indiana, and they get these endowments. I don't remember the name. That I get some huge amount of money from some donor that they can use each year. Some of them. I don't know exactly how this works, but I talked to these people. Anyway, in Greece, the environment is not that friendly for what we do, as it's in other countries. This is why we struggle. And from the beginning, it wasn't friendly. Now it's a bit better, but still there are a lot of things that need to change. Our funding comes from proposals that we write for European programs in Greece. Donors from the private works that we have started doing, for private people, for people that want to restore their houses in another and have another approach, not just do what everybody does, but see what was there, try to make it for more sustainable and have a house this way. It comes from our academic work now, some of us, and we're trying to work with Baluki in parallel. But it's always an issue. We don't have particular funding. Some institutions also and foundations also help us a lot.
Damn money gets in the way all the time of all the fun.
And it never ends. We never say, okay, I'm okay now. I can stop, looking around. It's always, a fight to manage to find the funding and the appropriate funding for the next project or for the project that you are already in.
What are you currently working on there?
Last semester, I was in the ATH University in Zurich when we had a studio run by Baluki. They were invited there to do a studio there. And this semester also, other colleagues are there doing again a studio where we try to give our way of thinking and our way of working inside the university. That means that to connect the studio, the architectural studio, with the actual work that we do. This was the Delos project, that it's, let's say, the second, or maybe now it will become the bigger project that we are running. It's an ecological site, Delos. The whole island, it's an ecological site. It's a UNESCO site. It's a beautiful ancient city. People visit it. You are not allowed to live there. You can't. There is no village or something. It's because it's an archaeological site. You come in the day and you leave in the afternoon. But there are needs also there. There are people living there. The guards, the archaeologists. There is a small community, which is not that small. Also, the French archaeologists live there some months. So there is, let's say, a rather of enough people, more than 50, let's say, people living there permanently, and it's getting bigger. And what we found out, and this is how this project started, is that it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always an archaeological site. There were farmhouses that there was this tradition also of grazing and having other uses in the land. And what we are trying to do, and so also, is that this vernacular culture, this vernacular architecture can communicate with the ancient monuments. It's not something that should be destroyed in order to preserve the monuments. It's something that you can do in parallel and have a win-win, let's say, a win-win. And what we do there is we have found and located one of the old farmhouses that was built in the late 19th, early 20th century, and we try to restore it in order to accommodate people that have to live in the island and work as researcher or whatever. It's quite a big project and quite difficult because the logistic part is very difficult. There is not easy way to bring the materials. You cannot excavate to use the raw earth. It's something, okay, we could make earth mortars or earthen materials from the soil around there, but we are not allowed. We can't use the stones from a local quarry. Everything is protected. So all the logistical chain is very difficult. To carry the materials is very difficult. Even basic questions as water and electricity have to be solved. It's an off-grid, let's say, thing. It's an off-grid project, but we're very, very proud of it. And anyway, what we try to do is to bring our students there and try to get them in the project that we already run. That means to get a bit dirty, do some hands-on work, and then draw on the existing and reimagine how things could be, not only in the monumentary sense, but also in other ways. And we let them freely to experiment and see in the projects to see and explore what could be done. This is a very nice project. Another interesting thing we found there, I think has to be mentioned, is that in these vernacular houses, people used a lot of spolia, which spolia means that they took the old materials and then somehow integrated in their structures. This is something very common in Greece. You can find it. There is a big, discussion about it, if, we should destroy and take it back, and when this should be happening. Okay, sometimes you have to take the old material, the ancient material, to use it in the restoration if it needed, but, which is the point that you are not allowed. For instance, many churches are made with marbles in Greece from ancient temples. Should we destroy the churches? I don't know. There is not a simple answer. But anyway, even in these structures, these humble, let's say, structures that we have now restoring, we find a lot of spolia, stones that are from a nearby ancient mansion, let's say, ancient villa, a Roman villa. But the archaeologists were very positive. Okay, document them and don't give them back. You don't have to, take it back. They are now there. We don't know the exact location. You can use them. But this is a very nice question. What you do with all these materials. And we also saw that there is a continuity in materiality. The same stone were used in the 3rd century BC in the villas, and the same materials were used in the 1980s, in the 19th century and the early 20th. The lime mortars were pretty much alike. The same stones, granite, sometimes chiseled, sometimes not. This makes you wonder, people from antiquity until a few decades ago were, building with this way, and suddenly all this stopped and we invented something else. Okay, of course, we're not, always for the old or some, romantic people, saying, but the fact that all this knowledge that has accumulated is lost, it's something that you can see it very obviously there, that, okay, you can see the ancient monument and the vernacular house, and they have the same exact materials and more or less the same processing of the materials, the same tools used and the same philosophy behind building. It's a bit sad, this when you realize that, and how much is the world today.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, all these materials of antiquity are, pushed away for, fast and furious progressional materials that are just going to make us go build as fast as we can.
When you lost this knowledge, it's not always easy to get it back. This is what we have shown. My work is mostly in the laboratory, building materials, trying to assess materials, characterize materials, prepare the restoration materials, and assess them. If the knowledge is lost, then there is not the last carrier of knowledge, let's say old people, interview or something, or, a written source, it's very difficult to find it with the laboratory research because it's not always a chemical analysis or, I don't know, the mineralogy. You had Mary Jackson, you might have heard all this research about Roman materials and Roman concrete. It's about the process. It's about how they treated the materials, how they applied, when they cut the wood, in which period. It was summer, it was the full moon, or it wasn't full moon when they cut the reeds, let's say. It's a whole, culture that is lost, and it's very difficult to reinvent it, even if you want, because nowadays a lot of people want to work with earth, with traditional materials and all this stuff. But, if this connection is lost, it's not very easy. It's sometimes impossible to do it again. You can just have an idea, but you will never get to the place where people get after generations if you don't have some idea.
When you're done with the project, where's all the information chronicled? Is it all written up, in a scholarly journal? Are there video documentaries made? How is this information archived so that 200 years from now they can look back and say, this is what they did?
Again, it depends on the project. We are always trying to have a professional videographer with us in most of our projects. Don't just have some DIY photos or, use our mobiles to get a short video. So in most of our projects, if you have seen our videos, we have someone, a professional with us in the whole project or in most of it. So we have the whole process from scratch until the end, videotape, let's say, and then he can make us a short film of 10, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, depends on what we want and how we want to disseminate. Another thing that we do as often as we can is the public dialogue. It's very important for us, to go and advocate and speak about things that, it seems to you that they are, obvious, but they are not. You have always to talk and talk again to people in order to persuade them to start, at least see that there is another perspective. It's not only one way forward, So we do a lot of, speaking to people, speaking publicly in radios, newspaper, whenever we can. About our projects, we use a lot of social media. I'm not a fan of social media, I don't have, but I understand how important they are, nowadays, to use the Facebook, the Instagram, and all these tools that you can have to get, visibility. So we have a lot of channels that we try to disseminate our work. We also publish some papers, some academic papers, but this is not our main thing. It's, let's say, some of us that are involved with academia have published some papers, but this is not the core approach because, academia is a small world. It's people talking to each other, but if you want to actually implement actual work, have actual architectural work, you have to go out there and speak more publicly.
Yeah. And then when it's broadcast out on the channels, are there ways in which folks can donate their funds to a specific project, or is it just like a one donation kind of covers any particular project?
It depends. We have done some projects in which we have asked for donation from people, but usually they don't cover. Now we have opened a section in our site. Everybody can see it in Buluki site, where somebody can become a member and has a lot. It has enough benefits, in order to have more info about us, more info about projects, have more regular contact with us and other stuff. We also have opened a link for companies that we feel that could help us, but also could help that we already collaborate, not just random companies. But we have opened this membership also for some companies that we consider similar-minded in one sense. There are also this kind of companies. So somebody can donate through this channel, become a member. That would be the best. It can find all the info someone needs in the site.
And we'll put it in the show notes for everyone to see for sure. And I myself will be donating happily. Looking back at what you've done over the past few years, what do you think is your most favorite project that you've worked on? And what project looking forward do you think most excites you?
I would say it was this project, the Under the Landscape, that it was a big boom for all of us. It was a big boom because we had all the aspects that we never later developed. Everything was there, the workshop, we have the training of young apprentices, we had very, very good craft people from Santorini and from Thiracia that remembered from their grandfathers how things used to be done, and they transferred this knowledge, but they didn't know, they have never used it, so they used it with us for the first time. So it was like a huge experience for us. We also did a lot of laboratory work in order to see how Thera and Earth was mixed, in what ratios and what gradation, and all the peculiarities that you can find, because Thera and Earth covers the whole island, so it was used for plasters, for earth mortars, for Theran mortars, structural, for pumice blocks. It was used for concrete. They also made the pumice concrete. Very nice material, lightweight, for arches and things like that. And it was also, this was, I believe, what I found more interesting was this waterproofing technique that they did, the people back then. A technique very similar to Tadelac that they used with Thera, Earth and lime in order to waterproof the underground cisterns, that they had to mix the material for 7 days or more. This is something that laboratory analysts can say to you, that you have to mix the material every morning for 7 days. It's something that you can't even imagine why it happened. So we tested this in the laboratory and we saw that it works, and the compressive strength gets double when you do it. The way you apply the volcanic stones that you need to find from the certain beach in order to, polish the final layer. And a lot of stuff that we find out through interviews and through laboratory work. And we saw how these two combined can give the exact, recipe and the exact way and move forward. And we did it. And I was very happy about it, when you finally saw the plaster, the waterproof cistern, you feel a small win. But also in this project, we had people living from the fine art school for 2 weeks with us, that they produced with Thera and Earth, their work, the sculptures. We had a symposium. We will publish the results of the symposium, the final papers, with very well-known academics. So everything that we then developed, the research, the academic, compound, the artistic, everything was there at the first place in this particular project. And it worked. This was the more important. It didn't, just fall apart. There was enthusiasm and it worked. Something that I still say, these two islands are covered entirely by Thera and Earth. Thera and Earth was exported all over the world until the 70s. I mentioned before some important infrastructure. And nowadays, they have all these millions of people coming there. They are building, like crazy, especially in Santorini. The people, especially Santorini, in my opinion, is more or less ruined, covered with buildings, and they still build, and they don't use it. They don't know how to use it, and they import all the materials they want, from other places. At the same time, they excavate to make the foundations, the Thera and Earth, and they don't know what to do with the Thera and Earth, which, it could be very expensive material. When I buy pozzolan for my laboratory, I pay 20 euros per 1 bag. And they have this, they're the best pozzolanic material, and they don't use it at the same time that they could just use it to build the houses from their foundations. Just the air from the foundations is not a normal soil. It's one of the best. And I find it completely crazy, that the craft people don't know, just their fathers, they remember their grandfathers using it. I find completely crazy. It was, something that we all said that things have to change. It makes sense. It's not like fantasy. It makes sense even economically to start using it,
Yeah, it's right underneath their feet. Why import all these things when you have everything you need right there?
You just need a bit of knowledge and just get into the material, understand it a bit. But it's not that sophisticated, it's not something very, very, sometimes it is, but it can be very easy. The structural mortars were a ratio 1 to 6. That means that only one part of live and 5 or 6, sometimes 6 parts of 3 on Earth. Imagine how cheap this could be for them, just to do a mortar like this.
How about moving forward? Looking into the future, do you have an upcoming project that you're really excited about that you can maybe talk to about it?
Usually up to now, Buluki mostly were using traditional building techniques and try to give a contemporary approach, just not just the romantic approach, just to show that this can be done. Now, for the first time, we are very close. I believe we will do this project, is to do a public building, small public building, but it's still a public building in Attica, which is let's say the place where Athens is, but a bit out of Athens, with earth. It will be, let's say, the first earth building, public earth building. And I believe this would also be very important, to showcase it, to disseminate this knowledge. We will use, hopefully, if the project moves forward, a lot of earthen techniques from light clay to rammed earth to earth blocks. That this was the tradition of Greece, mostly earth blocks, not rammed earth, just to notice. And I'm looking forward for it because there is a local community there that has embraced this project. There is a mayor that has embraced this project. There is a very good feedback. A lot of times when we implement projects, we are trying to be in line and have the local community and the local authorities with us, but it's not always the case, especially local authorities sometimes are not that friendly to our approach, but there everything seems that can be done and make the first, let's say, public building with earth in Attica. And I am really looking forward. Again, we want to do it in a different way. We have already taken sample of soils there. I'm testing them in the laboratory. We have prepared light clay materials in the laboratory under the Horizon project that we run, the Greenest project, that they help us a lot in this project and will be part, to see the thermal conductivity, to see the strength, to see the fire performance, because, in order to use these materials, you have to certify them somehow or test them yourself if they are not bought or brought in big bags by a company. This is something that we are always bear in mind, that in order to meet contemporary needs, we have to get through the laboratory in order to know the U values, to know if extra insulation is needed, how is the air regulation, all this stuff that are very important. We have already started doing this for the soil from this area, from Varnavas, and we hope that we will implement this project soon enough, in the next few months.
I like that.
Let's hope.
Yeah. Well, when that one gets up and running, maybe I'll take a little trip to Greece and volunteer my time.
Yeah, because we will also there is a discussion now that schools could join us. The local community, as I told you, has embraced it. I think it will be a very nice project. It's also very close to Attica, so we can have people from Athens working some weekends with us. And if you are working with earth, it's more easy to have an open, let's say, site. It's not lime or stone that somebody can easily get hurt, or have problems in their hands. It's more playful, let's say, more joyful to work with earth. It's much easier to have children with you to work to some small degree, of course, or people that are not trained. So we're really looking forward for it. Because the discussion has opened in Greece about earth construction. Not as in other countries, that they already have regulations, or Germany has regulations now, there's DIN standards on earth construction in other countries, have also some. Still, we are at an infant state, but there are a lot of efforts. There are architects, there are organizations, as Pilikos, that they are using them even at workshop or at their architectural practice. There are licensed buildings now in Greece with earthen materials, and I think this will be a good step forward, to make a public building and showcase it to a lot of stakeholders that this can be done at a cost that is normal. Okay, it's not something crazy.
Yeah, and then you can kind of segue into the future and say this is how this was done, and let's continue on in this fashion. I like it.
Yeah. And it allows you a lot there to have a nice design, architectural design. In my opinion, it's not my group's opinion, but it's my opinion. We can use a lot of stone and stone to restore all the buildings, but it's not easy to implement in a building from scratch, from the foundation. As I see it, in order the future of sustainable construction and the use of these techniques is in earth, that there is a lot of research around in USA also. I have seen from Colombia, let's say, some very nice papers and the work being done there. But also there are a lot of people working with earth now, making buildings, making a lot of stuff. And I think there is a future there. So I would say stone is for restoring. We have a lot of things to restore, and the earth is to build something new. Especially when it comes to the cost, and build with stone might be excessive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. This has been, it's wildly fascinating. I can't believe that, it was just a little bit less than a year ago, and I was, hanging out with you on the street.
We were getting old fast, eh?
Yeah, I know. It just goes and it goes and it goes. If you ever get the chance, in September, meet me over in Newcastle in England, and we'll go to the Building Limes Forum together.
You will go.
I'm going to go. Yeah,
I should go. Someone from Boluki will go, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. If they do make it, please let me know, and I would love to hang out with whoever it is.
For sure.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You.
Yeah, we're going to get you to bed, sir, because it's starting to get a little late. Sleep tight, sir, and we'll talk soon.
Very nice talking to you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please don't forget to tune in next week for our Season 3 finale as we head to Canelo, Arizona, with none other than Miss Athena Steen. The proud mother to Season 2 guest Benito, Athena has created a nonprofit center that's become a beacon in the natural building world, connecting people, culture, and nature. We're looking forward to chatting clay plasters, organic designs, and maternal mantras. Until next time, cheers!